Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I am your host, Samuel, and today I am delighted to bring you part 2 with Julia Greenspan. As I told you last week, this is fun. She gets into it. She gives this to us straight. She tells it how it is. I'm not going to spoil it. We're going to jump right in. Thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I sincerely hope you enjoy this interview.
And I think that when you have someone who's in a growth phase as a rep, which I was definitely in a growth phase, they're more demanding. They're like, show me your metrics, show me your data. Why do we do it this way? Like they start to really want to like break out of their current skill set. And I couldn't do that at Stryker. So I thought, okay, well, what's the choice? Like you have a non-compete. Is it that you stay in trauma and deal with all the politics of working under your non-compete? And I know that people out there will be like, non-compete, like you live in California. What are you talking about? It's not enforceable. That's true. However, there's 2 pieces to a non-compete, right? There's do you go work in trauma and call on the same people? Naughty, not allowed, but also not enforceable. But the other side of it is non-solicitation. And that means if anybody leaves Stryker and they think it's because you had something to do with it, you're reliable. Well, I was like West Area Education Director over 10 states. I know everyone. So there was there's kind of large attrition right now happening at Stryker Trauma in the West. And so I didn't want to have anything to do with that. It was like, nope. I think for personal liability, if people are leaving Stryker and they still want to talk to me, like I want to have my relationships solid.
Yeah.
And then not have to worry about some kind of like legal ramification because I'd rather keep my side of the street clean. And what's cool is you get to learn a new thing, which like if you're 20 years in and you're afraid of learning new stuff, you got to reassess your life at that moment. It's really fun being the new kid.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Wow. Okay. So you chose wound care. So, and that's what I'm really curious about. Because there are so many places you can go, as you know. What about wound care said, no, you know what? That's where I need to be.
Because it was so different.
Okay.
It was so different. It's like if I went to, say, total joints.
Yeah.
I know that game.
Okay.
I know that sales cycle. I know that game. I know those surgeons. Like, I get it. Been there, got the t-shirt. Like, it's once you've done trauma, I think you can do anything. All it is at that point would be learning new product.
Right.
It wouldn't be, and maybe obviously some like product that goes with like different types of clinical skills, right? But I was also a scrub tech. So remember, I've done almost every specialty in the operating room as a scrub tech. So it's not like I was a medical device rep that had only seen trauma ever and was like, gee, what about GYN? Like, no, I scrubbed that. Like, I know what that is. So it became, what's going to give me the most bang for my buck and teach me? And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do something I've never done before, which is DME sales. I have no idea what that looks like. I have no clue what that sales process is. Like I'm going in like, what is happening? And that's beautiful because that means I'm in my stretch zone. So everyone has their comfort zone, stretch zone, and then like obviously discomfort. I was in stretch. That's great. I wanted to live in stretch. I felt like every other option at my fingertips, because I got reached out to, right? Like you usually do when you leave and people know you're a free agent and it's like foot and ankle. No, man, I know what that looks like. I already know what that is. And is it interesting? Sure. But I want to use this year as a stretch year. And so in whether I stay or go, I don't know. Like, we'll see what happens at the end of my year, right? Like, do I fall in love with wound care and never want to leave? It's possible. There's definitely some cool stuff that 3M does that I'm for sure going to take them up on. Like, their internal training is bananas. It's fantastic. Fantastic stuff. And so I think that there are like further growth opportunities at 3M. But like, that was a conscious choice of mine to say, why would I like rat hole myself into one specialty?
Right. Wow. Okay. So you're in wound care now and you love that career. I want to jump into what you do outside of wound care. But before we get into that, you know, because of some of our listeners, tell us a little bit about what the day in the life of a trauma rep looks like, just so they can make a comparison between your job now and what you used to do.
Yeah, I love trauma. Trauma is super fun. I think trauma gets a bad rap. People think it's really stressful, which, I mean, it is, but it's all in how you manage that stress. There's a reason why I'm like, okay, non-compete's up October 15th, right? Like, why am I looking at the calendar? Because I love it, you know, I miss it. So it is something where I think if you make it part of your lifestyle, it's not nearly as intimidating. It's if you try to rat hole it like, okay, like a normal job is 9 to 5. Well, then, yeah, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be let down. Okay. If you say trauma's a lifestyle and you build it into your daily routine that there will be unpredictability, then it's a lot easier to handle. So
what does that look like? Give us a little bit more what that looks like.
So when you're a trauma rep, normally day before, night before. So I was on a team of 6. I led a team of 6. So when you lead a trauma team, it's really important to coordinate appropriately, right? You have to make sure you triage the right way. All right. Okay. So night before, you say, what cases do we have on deck tomorrow? Who's doing what? You have to make sure the right rep is at the right case, at the right facility. So you don't want to put the associate with like the high level trauma surgeon who has a really difficult, say like tibia plateau. Like, no, you're not going to send in the newbie to that. That's ridiculous and unfair. However, if like you look at the cases and it's like, hey, I think that there's actually like head count free. Well, then I would go do like, say, the difficult tibia plateau with the associate, make sure they get their training, right? So that's a really critical piece, is triaging correctly for cases the next day. So let's say we have like, I don't know, 7 cases the next day. Those are what we would call kind of our anchor appointments in trauma, because cases got to come first. Okay. They don't go uncovered. That's one of the big differences between trauma and some other ones. Like joints too, can't go uncovered. Very, very rare to have them not have a rep there. So you got to make sure those are priority. And then outside of that, you kind of have your weekly goals. What are the weekly goals? We want to hit this particular office, maybe this particular target. We've done our research. We've analyzed the data. We say this would be a really great target for this product. And somewhere in the week, either one of the senior reps might go do an initial call and say, can we get something on the books? Or maybe you, depending on the target and if it's appropriate and where the associate is in their training, maybe you say, this is a great practice for you, right? So a lot of that is very, very, it's all communicated. Everyone in the family knows what's happening, knows the plan. And that's kind of how it goes. Because when you get to the actual day, like say you have your plan, these are the 7 cases, we have all the staffing figured out, and then we think we might have room for a couple sales call in the evening or, afternoon. But then you get to the day of, well, guess what? Traumas pop up, cases cancel, patients eat, there's equipment issues, like whatever it might be. Then you have to really pivot around that. So if anything, trauma teaches you to be flexible. And one of the biggest things that helped me out was this little mantra. And I always told my associates, like, it's my problem, but it's not my fault. You really have to focus in on that. Like, just because you're having to like handle a crisis situation, it's your problem, but it's not your fault. You didn't put anybody in this situation, hopefully. Right. It's not your issue that they put the patient to sleep and didn't call you, right? So then you just go do it. So things like that, I think, keep you on the beam. But it's a very, very busy life. And I think, just kind of in your head, 12 hours a day. That's pretty average day is 12s. But I used to scrub 12s. So I was pretty used to that. And like, there's going to be days where you get home and you fall asleep and then your phone rings. All right, well, then you're out.
So then I got a question that when people know a little bit more about you, they're going to want to know too. You have 2 little ones.
Yeah, according to the paperwork.
How old are your little ones?
They are 6 and 8, 2 boys.
6 and 8, 2 boys. Yes. And you've been at 3M for how long?
Under a year. I'm still in my
under a year.
Yeah.
So you've been in trauma while you had children and they've grown to 6 and 8 years old. Yeah. And you're married. how did you manage this with this flexible schedule that you're describing?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, you know, as you know, there's trauma, which again, a lot of people do have misconceptions about. Then there's women in trauma, which are even more misconceptions about. And then there's mothers in trauma, which a whole new layer. And you've literally managed to tackle all of them, to the point where you can say, this job is fun and I can do it. And I was able to raise a family and raise kids and look at me. So you got to let us know, you know, how did you make that work with the trauma schedule, the flexibility that's required, and the responsibility you still had to exercise with your family?
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful question because a lot of women, I get a lot of reach outs on LinkedIn, which I love. I'm not one of those people who's like, ew, don't bother me. Like, I actually really like it. I like it when people have the balls to reach out to someone in the business. I think that's great. So happy to talk about that anytime if anyone out there is sort of like, what do I do? But we talk about it a lot. And it comes down to man or woman. It comes down to family support. Okay. That's it. So trauma is a family business. Everyone's in on the project. So what you can't do, what I think is really unhealthy, is silo your work off to the side and then have your family quote unquote protected in a little bubble. Like, oh, I'm not going to tell them what I do. I'm not going to tell them, you know, why I'm leaving. There's nothing more traumatizing for a kid than seeing a parent leave and not knowing why. Right. So I'm very honest with my children. Hey, I got to go. Someone broke their leg. They did? Yep. It's open, which means the bone is sticking out, which means it's really important that we get that thing back in and wash it out.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it. So my kids did, I'm really big on teaching. So I was sort of known for doing a lot of, you know, sawbones labs, things like that, cadaver labs. And my kids would help me set it up.
Wow.
Hey, you want a quarter? Help mama set up a lab. And then they could
come. So you made it a family affair. Look at that.
You have to. Otherwise, they look at you like, you know, kids are bright. You know this.
Right.
Kids are smart. And they know when you're holding something back. They know when you're not being genuine. They're the best sales trainers on the planet, man, because they know. They can smell it.
Facts.
So you have to be like, hey, I want to be here for this thing that we're doing. Like, I want to have dinner with you right now. But the fact of the matter is that someone got really badly hurt and they need my help. Think I should go? Yeah, I think you should go. All right, cool. And then give me a high five and I'm out. But that means that I also have to have a really supportive spouse. Yes. So one of the biggest downfalls of a trauma rep is if their spouse is not on board. So I've definitely seen coworkers say their wife, girlfriend, significant other is like, you're leaving again. Like that kind of emotional hit to your relationship every single time you have to go.
Yeah. It's just it weighs.
Yeah, it takes an emotional toll on the rep, and in a way that like might be terminal, depending on how it is. So if you have constantly people pulling on you at home and yanking on your ears, saying like you belong here, when you have your surgeon customers saying I need you, like that's impossible. So unless the whole family is in on it, I feel like it's a pretty tough road to hoe. So I'm very lucky that I have a really supportive spouse who's a drummer and a surfer, and he's got like a completely different lifestyle, which is great.
Easy going. He's like, we're just riding the waves.
dude, if the kids are out at school or whatever, and I'm obviously out working, or you know, it's just awesome because he's like, oh, I'll just go drum for like 5 hours and not even notice that you're gone. It's like great because you have to have that independent thing. You can't be in a relationship where it's like, where are you all the time? Not in trauma. And anyone who's ever been in trauma rep and dated, I mean, Jesus, when I was single, I mean, not a lot of people pass that test. Like a month in, like, why are you still working? It's like, why are you even asking? Like, this was on the label of the packaging, bro. Like, you knew what this was. And if you get needy now, it's not going to work out. Like, sorry.
Get needy now. You know, every trauma rep should get a sticker that says, if you get needy now, it's not going to work out.
It's not going to work out. Like so I have these little workbooks I always use if anybody is like a nerd. Anyway, I caught one guy going through mine when I was a rep. He was like, I just couldn't believe that you really worked all those hours. I was like, we can talk about a thing called boundaries.
Right.
Like, that's not kosher.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, and in that vein, you know, before we wrap up, I want to get into something that I think is something that everybody needs to know about, and it falls right into the topic we're addressing right now, with kind of breaking down the misconceptions of life and trauma. Tell us a little bit about what you're a part of outside of 3M that you're able to do on your own time.
You're talking about Sale Vice.
Sale Vice. So say it again. Sale Vice.
Sale Vice.
Sale Vice Society.
Sale Vice Society.
All right.
It was started by my friend Emily, and she just, I think women in orthopedics in general, women in medical device, depending on your division, we can be really rare. So. Sure. Especially ortho trauma, like there's just not a lot of women. And even if there are, I mean, that's nice that they hire more women now, but I think you got to watch out for the retention rates. Like, Is it really a success if they leave under 2 years? Right. So I kind of look at that. So you're kind of looking for the old ladies. Like, well, how many ladies stuck around past 5 years, right? Like, how many ladies stuck around past 15 years? And then it gets infinitesimally smaller. Just kind of like you were alluding to earlier. And so Emily started this thing called Sale Vice Society, which is where women in medical device, but really men too, it's not just for women, but it started kind of as a more support for women, can come and just have a network of women in medical device outside of their company. So the idea is to be company neutral and to be gender neutral. So like, for example, I lead their office hours every Saturday. So every Saturday morning at 7 a.m., I hop on a Zoom and people can come on and be anonymous, turn their camera off, turn their camera on, whatever to their comfort level. And they just talk about their week. Sometimes I have reps that just want to vent, like they had a really crappy case, or they had a really bad interaction and they just kind of want to almost like therapist through it, like a peer counselor sort of. Right. And I'm happy to do that. Usually I can give them some sort of perspective on this isn't as bad as you think it is and here's why, or help them move if they want some coaching on how to move forward, sort of like lead them through that thinking process of like, well, how can we improve your current situation? And then other times it's more sensitive topics. Like sometimes there's harassment. And they're afraid of going to HR. They're afraid of going to their manager. And it's just like, sometimes they just need someone to talk to and suss through those situations because they're real and they happen every day. And some managers, quite frankly, just don't know what to do with that situation or handle it in the right way. That's like, yes, there's the policy way, reporting to HR and going through a formal issue. But then there's the human way of like, but what does the person actually need in that moment? And oftentimes they aren't getting it. So they call us. Got it. And what's the best way to get in touch with people at the Sales Vice Society? Me and Emily, let's see. So Sale Vice Society is, it's a Mighty Network. So it's on an app called Mighty Network. And there's also like a LinkedIn page. And Emily is super, super vocal on Instagram. So if you're on the gram, you can always find her there. I'm a little bit of an old lady with it. And so I'm like, Insta's scary. She's way more media savvy than I am. But that's why we're a good pair. I think because she's able to sort of like do more of that media outreach. And I'm just kind of like the old lady with my coffee cup, like, tell me all your problems, kid. And so it's an interesting partnership. That is fantastic. Okay. And is there a hotline, a number you can give right here that people can contact? We're going to have in the show notes too. Yeah, sure. I mean, you can, I don't care if my personal number is out there, right? So you can always find me on LinkedIn, Julia Greenspan. But also I don't really care. I'll throw my cell phone out. It's 510-316-1475. Just text first, because I'm with a patient. I'm not answering my phone. But you know, now I'm going to tell you, Julia, you will be called. You will be called. I'm all good for that. I'm all good for that. I feel like there's no downside to sort of like a generous mentorship. And if that is a thing that people need, I always find that people who call me need to. I've never had somebody call me in a situation where I put my number out there and I've been like, why did you even reach out? Half the time it's like, yeah, okay, like we can work through this. And the other half, I'm like, man, what a devastating situation. Like, I don't know if I can help, but I can talk to you. And I've never had anybody abuse that yet. We'll see what happens, Samuel. But you can feel free. And I can't wait to hear what happens after you've generously put your number out there. Yeah. Okay.
Well, then as we wrap up, I'm going to ask you a few questions. You have about 10 seconds or less to answer, and just give it your best shot. All right?
Lightning round. Oh my God.
Lightning round. Here we go. Okay. All right. So, number one, what's the best book you read in the last 6 months?
I'd say The Seven Daughters of Eve. It's about it's about really genetics, and it's about how we all we can be traced back to like only 7 women.
Oh, that is
the entire human race right now.
Oh, wow. There we go. I'm going to have to read that. Yeah. Best movie in the last 6 months?
That I've seen? I don't know, Split. I know I came late to the party, but
very late. But
I finally saw Split, and it was like fucking amazing.
Right?
Yes,
right?
I love that movie.
Academy Award. He should have gotten an Academy Award for that one.
Just say
and then best meal in the last 6 months?
Anything that I didn't make. It's always appreciated.
Never heard that answer before. Not one time. And then finally, best experience in the last 6 months?
Oh, I had a patient send me a thank you note this week, and it was absolutely touching. It was really sweet. She just said, like, there needs to be more people in the world like you. And I went, holy crap. Well, that's one thing you don't get in trauma is a patient, a sweet little old lady, beautifully handwriting you a letter and sending it to you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, one last thing you want to share with the audience as we sign off today?
Just be kind to each other. If there's anything I can tell you from someone who's been in medical device for a very long time, it's be careful how you treat your competition. They will either be working for you or with you or under you or over you at some point in your career. So for all the young'uns who might be a little bit like aggressive about their business right now, go be aggressive, but be a person first, be a human first, be kind, always help each other, because it comes back to you tenfold. Trust me. I've had it happen to me more often than I'd like to count, where there's boomerangs that come back. Thank God I was cool. Thank God I was nice. Right. And same thing goes for products. When you're talking about your product, don't trash someone else's. That surgeon might be really emotionally invested in a product that you're trying to go up against. So just be a cool, calm cucumber, a nice island of calm and zen for your surgeons, and you'll be fine.
That's fantastic. Julia, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Anytime. Thanks for having me, Samuel.
Be the cool cucumber, the calm for your providers. Isn't that fantastic? I love when Julia joined us because she had just a perspective that's very refreshing. And what she's doing for women in this space is fantastic. To have an opportunity for any woman that's going through something that men just do not experience on a regular basis, it's a beautiful thing. And I champion it 100%. And Julia has taken time on Saturdays to spend time and wait for people to call and tell her whatever they need to. It's services like that that bring true innovation to medical sales, because by having that platform, everyone gets to feel heard, and when you get to feel heard, you get empowered, and when you feel empowered, you can do your job that much more effectively. You can handle situations that much more effectively. You can manage interpersonal relationships that much more effectively. And that's what they're doing there at the Cell Advice Society. So make sure you check it out. It will be in the show notes, and see if there's something that you want to share on that platform. So much good stuff here. I would even say give it a second listen if there's something you might have missed. You might be listening to this episode and you might be thinking to yourself, you know what? I liked what she talked about when she was in trauma, or I like the fact that she works in wound care and I'm curious, or you really don't know where you want to be, but you want to be in medical sales. Again, visit evolveyoursuccess.com, select attain medical sales role, follow the prompt, submit some information, and have a schedule some time and have a conversation with us here at Evolve Your Success. And if you're in the industry and you're truly trying to make some waves in your space with your territory and drive business, then visit evolveyoursuccess.com, select improve sales performance, follow the prompts, submit some information, and schedule some time with us, and let us help get you on your way. As always, we do our best to bring you innovative guests that are doing amazing things in the med sales space, like Julia Greenspan. So make sure you tune in next week for another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.